Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Solutions for Accounting Sage 200 Breakfast webinar. This morning's session is designed to show you some of the features in the new release of Sage 200 Professional and hopefully give you some hints and tips that you'll find useful. Sage have a new offering that links to Sage 200 Professional called Sage Inventory Planner, which helps with inventory forecasting. Stu Pick and Harvey Greenwood from Sage have joined us this morning, and we'll go over some of the functionality of offers, including class-leading forecasting functionality for your inventory. Please feel free to ask any questions in our Q&A, which is being monitored by our team. If I can ask you all to mute your microphones for me, please, as well, just so there's no background noise. As part of our continued drive for customer service, we also have our customer success team in the meeting today. Sarah and Yasmin will be proactively contacting you all to do system health checks to ensure your Sage 200 system is running as efficiently as possible. The Sage 200 2023 R2 release happened on the 25th of August and is the second release of the year. It's a minor release, the major one having happened in February. And it's worth noting that a lot of the functionality improvements and additions in Sage 200 have come from customer requests and suggestions made to the Sage Ideas Hub. Sage are already planning functionality for the February 2024 release, and more details on this can be found on the Sage 200 roadmap. If you have any issue accessing the roadmap, then your account manager will be happy to help. There are key improvements, especially around the web portal for Sage 200, which we'll go into more detail shortly. There's also improvements to the API, and the cloud version is fully Windows 11 functional. As a business, we're seeing more and more clients taking advantage of the Sage Partner Cloud as your cloud. As your hosting gives you Sage 200 as an efficient, secure, flexible, fully hosted environment. The version of Sage 200 we'll be using has an identical user interface, whether it be in a traditional on-premise environment or in the hosted environment. I'm going to go into some of the web screens that you may or may not have seen. Quick hands up who's looked at or used the Sage 200 web screens in the past. So, we have the Sage 200 web screens available to you, and these are in the latest versions of Sage 200. And what's really important about this release is that these are now customizable, so our developers can amend them for you should you need it. And you may remember I mentioned the Sage 200 roadmap previously. Just to give you an idea, this is some of the functionality coming in 2024 R1. So it talks about retirement to certain platforms, such as SQL, API updates, and more around the web screens. So into the web screens themselves, there's different areas of the program here, and just to make you aware, this isn't just everything you see in Sage 200 on the web, but as an idea, these are open up to the internet, so you can have your customers can see it, your teams on the road can see it, and it's asking me to log in. It's all done through connected users for Sage 200, and these are available. Just ask your account manager should you want any information on them. Right. Let me just refresh that. So if I take you into one of the accounts, we can actually view all the account information. Just on any account. So as we see here, all the details you'd expect to see when you're in Sage 200 in the main application can be seen, whether it's contacts, trading, documents, simple things like turnover, age balances, etc., etc. We can also look at the transaction inquiries. So if we go back to the customers list, we can literally hit and view outstanding transactions for any of the accounts. So again, this is a really useful way. If you want somebody who doesn't necessarily need to be a full Sage 200 user, but you want them to have the ability to see things, and they may not be office-based, or they could be in the warehouse, they could be on the road, so you can view this on devices such as an iPad or a tablet, then it's really handy. And again, we have options for the purchase ledger. So to take you into some of the options here, we can look at a purchase ledger invoice and enter. There we go. So we've got the supplier, the Atlas ranges. We're just going to put a random goods value in here. You can do all your nominal analysis should you want to. And that is literally live into this main Sage application. So anybody who's a full Sage user can view that instantly. So this is straight to the Sage 200 database. Sage are doing a lot more around web screens and pushing them further and further to try and enhance the web offering for Sage. Again, we go into the nominal ledger, to the nominal list, and we can do a very simple transaction inquiry within the nominal ledger on any of the nominal codes. Straight away, we can see all the information there that you would see in Sage 200 in the main application. And you'll also notice there's handy links, so you can go from there straight to view the account. So it's all about driving around the system nice and easily and making life simple over the web. You can look at your cash book. So even simple things. So if your MD sat on holiday and wants to know if you can afford another pina colada while he's sat on the beach, he can go straight to the bank account list, look at the bank balance and decide whether he's going to have a large or a small one next time. So you can again do transaction inquiries, enter receipts, do a lot of the stuff you do day to day in Sage 200, but you can do it on the web. Simple things like stock, and I mentioned people in the warehouse. If they want to transfer stock, as long as you give them the access rights to, we can allow stock transfers on the fly. Literally, they can be wherever you want them to be at this moment in time. We can even add new bins on the go if we wanted to. But I'm going to transfer one. And if you look here, it's also say that increase the quantity amongst the maximum stock level. It's just the warning, the same one you get in the program. And again, that's live, that's done. So it takes that time out of them having to go to your accounts team and say, right, we're transferring stock from A to B. Can you do that transfer for me? So it saves that two-person touch. Only one person needs to do it, so it's saved in range for error. And a few other handy features are things like sales orders. So for people who use sales order processing, if you have users and their entire job is just to enter sales orders, instead of them having to be a full Sage user, they could have access to this. They wouldn't need it installed on a local client. Obviously, you can keep this on your intranet, or you can open it up to the outside world on the internet. I have tried it on a mobile phone screen, and I will be honest with you, it's a bit too small to use on something like that. But again, for a lot of transaction inquiries, it's quite adequate. You'll also notice that we've got the copy order function. So again, if you've got a lot of the functionality that's in the core program. So we're just going to put an order in. The order is taken by a web user. Find and during display. And that's the item I want. So they're in there. And as you can see, I'm going to enter a quick quantity for that. So I just want one of those. Which warehouse? So anybody who's created sales orders will be familiar with all the requirements that you go through it with. And I can have several lines to the order. That's not a problem. And I simply hit save. If there's a customer order number as within Sage 200, then you can enter it. And again, that sales order is now live in the system. So it's enabling people to do their own job independently without having to get more and more people involved, taking more time from different people. So have we got any questions around web screens before we move on? Anything in the Q&A? Okay, so, yep. We'll cancel the web screens. So another area in Sage 200 that was introduced recently and has been expanded on is alerts. So I suspect some of you aren't aware of this. I think a lot of people aren't. Within an account, we can set an alert. So I'm going to add an alert into Better Kitchens, and I'm just going to call it test alert for the purposes of this morning. And you can enable it in the different areas of the application. You can make it active or inactive, so it may be that you want to use it now, don't want to use it the next time, or want to put it back on, that's absolutely fine. So I'm just going to save that. And within invoicing, so you'll notice straight away that alert comes up. So it could be something around make sure you get a purchase order number for this customer. It could be 1,000,001 different things you might want to alert on, but that's on numerous different screens. So there's an example of it on a sales ledger. And again, if we went to the purchase ledger within Sage 200, I'm just going to set the alert on AB cookers. In fact, there might already be one. Yeah, there it is. So if I go and create a purchase order now, and AB cookers, you'll notice I've actually got 2 alerts on there. And if I click OK, I've still got a little flag there that reminds me there's an alert. So if you're working away quickly and you click OK by mistake, you can just press that button and bring the alert up again. As well as alerts, we can now hide customer and sales ledger accounts that are no longer active. So if you've got customers that you don't trade with or haven't traded with for a long time, rather than coming out on all your reports and everything else, you can simply go and highlight them, go to the status, and make them hidden. So that doesn't delete them from the background in Sage, that doesn't delete their transaction history, and you can't create an account with the same details and reference as you had before, but you can reactivate that account. So that's available on the sales ledger. And again, we can do exactly the same thing here and just account status and hidden. So it's a great way of keeping your reports lean and trimmed and everything else. So any more questions on Sage 200? Thank you. So we've got a query in. So Sarah was talking to one of our clients the other day and mentioned they were looking at web screens and asked if they've got any functionality around purchase orders. At present, there isn't, but interestingly, that is on the roadmap for the release in February 2024. I will give the caveat that the details of each release aren't guaranteed until release, but we will be doing an update to all of our clients when that's done. With that, I'm going to hand over to Stu Pick from Sage, who is going to talk you through Sage Inventory Planner, which is a really fantastic dynamic tool.
So, thank you, Sandy. Well, morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for inviting me on. My name's Stuart. I'm Director of Partnerships for the Retail Products. I came across from the acquisition of a company called Brightpill that Sage made about 18 months or so ago, and talking today about Inventory Planner by Sage, which was one of the products that Sage acquired. And also joining me is Harvey Greenwood, who's our Senior Solutions Consultant, and is going to give us a very quick demo, show you a few screens today as well. So what I'm hoping to cover is what inventory forecasting is all about and why it's become so important, how Inventory Planner works, some research that we've done that really highlights some trends and some things that are happening out there with businesses like yours, problems we solve. We'll show you the software really quickly, and then I've put together a few useful resources for anyone that's looking to maybe research this field a little bit more, or just wants to know a little bit more about the product and everything. So in terms of what Inventory Planner is, I promise I will only read this one slide, but it is a cloud software tool. It's designed for retailers, manufacturers, distributors, e-commerce companies, essentially any business holding physical inventory. And it's all about optimizing the inventory levels by looking at what's happened in the past, so analyzing historic sales in order to forecast future requirements. And it's all about tying up or avoiding tying up cash in dead stock, loss of revenue through stockouts, accurate reporting, and really maximizing and preserving cash revenue and delivering great customer loyalty. So I apologize for the simplicity of this slide. It's a little bit of a Janet and John of inventory, but you've got to optimize inventory for the demand. And this becomes quite difficult once you start running hundreds of SKUs, and once your business reaches a certain kind of scale, you can no longer really do this on spreadsheets. So really simply, if you have more demand than you have inventory, it's likely that you will have unfulfilled orders, disappointed customers. You might be seeing negative reviews, and potentially lost revenue as a result of no inventory to sell. And this is quite a common problem, normally down to poor planning or really a lack of data in order to replenish inventory. The opposite of this is where you have more inventory than you have demand. And this is where you've got stock sat on shelves, whether that's your own warehouse or maybe a third-party logistics. But the real symptoms are poor cash flow, reduced revenue because you're not actually selling that inventory, and really a lack of working capital to invest on things like customer acquisition, marketing channels, and actually physically stocking the inventory that is selling. So I know that's a little bit of a basic concept. In terms of Sage 200, well, there's already a ton of inventory functionality that you already have, but you can think of Inventory Planner as I don't want to say a bolt-on or an add-on, but really kind of augmenting the functionality that you already have within the Sage 200 platform, and it really handles the forecasting, the replenishment, the purchasing, and some advanced reporting. I'm going to send this deck to everybody afterwards, so I'm not going to read out some of these slides. But one of the big trends post-pandemic, especially with a downturn that we're seeing in retail, is a lot of businesses left with excess inventory, and identifying that really quickly and liquidating that inventory is become really important. So in terms of how it works at a conceptual level, we take the data that exists in the systems that you already use. So that might be e-commerce channels if you're selling through e-commerce. So popular platforms like Shopify and Magento and Adobe, for example. You may be selling on marketplaces like Amazon, or we may be taking the data from the ERP or an alternative system. Essentially, we take product, sales, and inventory data. We run it through the algorithms and the forecasting methods that you've set within the platform to meet your goals, and then we really display that data to you in a way that you can take action and make decisions. So it gives you an automated forecast. Many of you may be doing this in an Excel spreadsheet, or you may be using simplistic features that already exist, but it really gives you the data that you need in order to raise purchase orders. It raises it, as well as telling you what you need, when you need, how much, etc. It also respects the suppliers and the vendor requirements that you might have. So things like minimum order quantities, pack sizes, and different things like that, as well as just tons of really great reporting, which we can show you shortly. I've taken a few slides from some research that we've done fairly recently, which is about to be released. We surveyed 500 UK-based businesses in the retail sector. That's a fairly broad term, but essentially businesses selling physical products. And for the eagle-eyed amongst you, you will notice that some of these charts have been, we've left out answers such as not sure and not applicable and things like that. So don't worry about some of these percentages not adding up. But when we look at cash flow, the issue of cash flow, I suppose, at the moment, 48% would describe their cash position as precarious. 48% would also say that they need to improve cash flow urgently, and 35% of businesses saying that they're struggling to manage cash flow effectively. In terms of excess stock, so one of the major reasons why businesses use a tool like Inventory Planner, 65% would say that consumer demand in the last 6 months has left them with excess stock. So this is quite a common problem. There's also quite a lot of fairly high-profile businesses that have cited this. So some of you may remember reading about Made.com and Nike famously lost about 10 billion of their market capitalization from this issue alone. And lots of businesses, again, 48% saying that it's describing excess stock as a major concern. As well as that, businesses also would say that it's actually quite a difficult problem to solve. So actually shifting that excess stock, 52% of people agree that they're concerned about their ability to shift it, and 47% saying that they've actually written off stock in the last 12 months as a result. In terms of out of stock, so the opposite problem, 42% of businesses say that they've had problems with addressing out of stock situations. So this is where you've run out of inventory, but you've got demand. And 75% of those surveyed, so 75% of that 42, saying that it's actually had a negative impact either on revenue or customers. So the most likely and the most common symptom that we see of this is negative reviews. People have purchased something online, doesn't show up, it leads to a disappointed customer. And then just finally, 47% saying inventory-related issues are a major concern. Purchasing the right amount of inventory, they see that as a struggle or a challenge. And the need to reduce inventory, 45% said that they agree. So I guess the reason for sharing this is that these are quite common challenges that we see with businesses that sell physical inventory. And things getting slightly worse post-pandemic as well. I think a lot of businesses still using spreadsheets. So I'm not going to go through everything on this slide. The typical triggers: poor reviews, loss of revenue, not having the insight in order to be proactive with inventory replenishment, perhaps unhealthy cash flow, maybe using Excel. Maybe Excel was a good tool when things were a little bit more manageable, perhaps a smaller business, but really once you're starting to sell hundreds of SKUs and variants, and your business is growing, then Excel normally comes a bit of a challenge. We've got tons and tons of customer stories on our website, so encourage you to have a look at those. We've got them neatly displayed by sector, but the most common things that all of our customers say is that we reduce stockouts, we help them grow because they've got the insight to invest in the right inventory. We see some I love these stats where people reduce the amount of inventory that they're actually holding, or they improve their stock turn. So these are the types of things that our customers say having deployed Inventory Planner. And the other thing that people tell us as well is that they get value out of the software really, really quickly. The overstock report is often the thing that people are most surprised at. So they switch on, plug in their data, and the overstock gives you an immediate view of what excess inventory you could probably liquidate and free up that cash. So hopefully this has come across in terms of the challenges that we solve. It's forecasting, it's having the insight to understand what to order, when to reorder, and why, and factoring in things like supplier lead times, etc. So Harvey's going to show you this in a second. It's the purchase order process itself and raising purchase orders, but it's also about respecting the supplier's requirements around minimum order quantities and pack sizes and things like that. And then just tons of reporting. We've got lots of comparative reports that people get a lot of value out. The real, I guess, the reason why inventory forecasting has become so important, and we've seen so much demand for this type of service, is that really inventory is often the largest item on the balance sheet. It has one of the biggest impacts, I guess, for you to manage cash flow, and the cost of virtually everything has gone up. The cost of acquiring customers, imports and duties and freights, and the cost of labour, cost of virtually everything has gone up. So managing inventory seems to be a higher priority for businesses, particularly in the last few years, and that's really what Inventory Planner does. So I'm going to turn this over to Harvey. We're going to give probably just a 5 to 10 minute quick overview of some of the, I guess, the highlight features of the software. But if anybody wants a more detailed look at the software, then we can arrange this via Certainly and team afterwards, and we can make that a little bit more tailored to your own situation and your own goals as well. But Harvey, if you're ready, then over to you.
Cool, thanks, Stu. Yeah, really nice to meet everyone. As Stu said at the start, I'm one of the solution consultants here at Sage, so hopefully I'll be able to give you a quick overview of the product today. Like Stu said, we're going to give a very, very high level, so we won't go into too much detail around like forecasting methods or anything like that. We'll just give you a high level overview. And if you want to get more information around the product, we can then schedule a separate call to do that. So what you can see on screen now is Inventory Planner. I'm really going to focus on just two key areas of the platform today. And Stu's mentioned both of them in the introduction. So the first piece is around that automated forecasting. So this is the primary reason that Inventory Planner was developed. And it's around us utilizing historical sales data to generate accurate forecasts to ensure that businesses like yourselves have data, can essentially make data-driven decisions around what products you want to replenish and when you want to be replenishing them. So it's always it's ensuring that you've got the right stock available at the right time. So I'll jump into the replenishment report now. There's going to be a lot of data on screen. You'll start to see throughout the demonstration that Inventory Planner is a very data-driven platform. So hopefully you guys do like data. Just keep in mind that the reports are configurable. You can change the columns. You can chop and change what data gets pulled in depending on what data is relevant to you. So the reason that you'll come to this report is to raise purchase orders. So we're going to start to be highlighting the products that we want you to be replenishing on here. Now, like I said, I'm not going to go too deep in terms of the forecasting methods of how we actually generate the forecast today. But essentially what we're going to be doing is using different forecasting methods, which will take into consideration things like seasonality, stock out information. You can start linking new products to historical products. So you've got, again, data-driven decisions on new products that you're launching. And we're going to start to use things like lead time and days of stock or stock cover, which you guys may call it, to start to identify how many units you want you to be replenishing. So you can then use this data on screen to raise purchase orders with your suppliers. And one of the key differentiators that Inventory Planner has is the ability to pull in loads of different KPIs on a product level. So not only are you going to be able to use the forecast that we're generating in here, but we're also going to be able to pull in all of your sell-through rate, your sales velocity, your profitability, because you have the ability to add in over 180 different KPIs. We obviously wouldn't expect you to pull in all 180 different KPIs, but there's loads that you can pull in here to make sure that you've got every bit of data necessary to ensure that you're focusing on the most profitable or the most beneficial items to you as a business. So that's the replenishment report, obviously a very, very quick overview. The next report that I want to go into is the overstock report. So this is essentially the opposite of replenishment, where we still use the same forecasting methods, the same algorithms as we do in the replenishment report. However, what we're going to be doing here is highlighting the products that not are overstocked now, because that's pretty pointless. What we're trying to do is get ahead of the curve and say, actually, if these products keep selling at their current run rate, you're going to end up in an overstock position, and therefore you're going to have cash tied up against these products. So we want you to use the data in this report to drive promotions and marketing campaigns to try and increase the demand against these products, to really just try and get them out of the warehouse as quickly as possible. So again, as Stu said, this is quite a shock for a lot of businesses when they hook up Inventory Planner, because at the bottom you're going to see your total overstocked cost and things like that. So it's quite daunting sometimes. But the idea is that we're not telling you you're overstocked now. It's getting ahead of that curve so you can do something about it before you do end up in that overstock position. So essentially what we're going to be doing here is identifying at the end of your stock cover period, which is the period that you've told us, or the longest period that you want to hold stock of that item, how many units you're going to be overstocked by of that particular product. And you can do things like breaking it down on cost and retail level as well. So there's some really cool metrics that you can pull in on the overstock report. Perfect. Now the final section that I'll go into is the reporting. So this isn't necessarily the primary reason that Inventory Planner was developed. However, due to the amount of data that we're pulling into the system from whichever platform we're integrating into, we can build some really, really cool reports. And that can start to give you sort of supplier performance, category performance, brand performance, product performance. So there's loads of different reports that we can build, and they live within this report section here. So I'm obviously not going to go through all of these reports with you. What I'll do is I'll go through the inventory KPI report, And this is by far the most powerful report in the platform, purely because it's just giving you the flexibility and ability to configure the report so you can choose what level you want to see the data at, and you can then pull in all of the relevant KPIs that I touched on earlier. So again, there's going to be a fair bit of data on screen here. But essentially what this is going to allow you to do is view your data at these different levels, as you can see here. So we can start to break it down on a category level, a brand level. We've got tags built in the system. So if you want to get more granular with your reporting with an inventory planner, you can do. And what we can then start to do is understand, right, what is my category performance across a set date range? And a lot of businesses are using this to understand, right, when we've run a particular promotion or a particular marketing campaign, how has that affected our sales? So we can then start to add multiple different periods into that same report. So we can start to layer our sales data, our profitability, our revenue on top of each other across multiple different periods. So we can very easily identify, right, how has that affected our revenue, our profitability? Now, every report that I've gone through can be exported directly out of the platform. So if you do want to manipulate that data elsewhere, you can do. And we've also got automated email functionality, which allows you to schedule reports. So if you wanted to have a set report emailed out to a number of individuals internally on a monthly basis or something like that, ahead of a board meeting, you can easily schedule reports out of the system as well. Cool. So very quick overview of the system. Hopefully it's given you a quick insight into the kind of functionality that we have and what we're delivering. Obviously, when we do demo this to businesses, we go into a lot more detail. We'll spend at least an hour with you going through the platform. But really today, we just wanted to give you a very, very high level overview. Cool.
Great.
Are there any questions or are we all good?
Thank you, Harvey. I think we'll probably cover the questions. Just got a couple more things to do. Okay, so in terms of additional resources, so you will hopefully get this slide deck after this webinar. I've put together, in fact, I'll come off of this. I'm going to show you some of these things. So there's some really, really good inventory guides and advice. So if you're seeing this today and you feel like you want to consume more information and content, then we have some fantastic guides on the Inventory Planner website here. So things like the ultimate guide to demand forecasting, I'd recommend that as a really good place to start. Then there's also some really useful content around boosting revenue and things like that. We've also got tons of customer stories. So some of you may want to have a quick read through those. Most of them give a kind of before and after. And then if, like me, you prefer to watch stuff, then we have a pretty active YouTube channel. So there's plenty of quite specific overviews here and demos of particular parts of the software, as well as some kind of overview as well. So I've got all of the links to that. And then in terms of next steps, really, if anyone wants more information, then obviously schedule a conversation with your account manager. If anyone wants to request a more detailed demonstration, which is a little bit more tailored towards your business, your tech stack, some of the forecasting goals, the ways that you do things today, then we'd be happy to arrange that as well. But again, speak to your account manager for that. So certainly, I believe, back to you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for both. That was really useful and insightful. So thank you all for attending.